If you've ever wanted justice so badly it kept you up at night, then buckle up. Because this revenge, it's brutal, it's clever, and it's exactly what he deserved. Hit like and let's get into it. The golden age of trust. This happened in the early 90s, before Steam libraries and internet downloads, when floppy disks ruled and getting your hands on new PC games took real effort. Back then, a pair of teenage friends, let's call them Daniel and Mark, were some of the only students in their class with access to computers and games. Their shared love for PC gaming created a tight bond. But because they lived in a small town with barely any gaming stores, most of their titles came from airmail orders, expensive, slow, but worth it. They'd copy the games, share the manuals, even duplicate the copy protection codes, because in that pre-internet world, every disc was sacred. Enter Kevin, the new kid in class. Charismatic, confident, and a gamer. Kevin boasted that his uncle had hundreds of rare PC titles. Doom 2, Monkey Island, The Settlers. Names that made every nerd's heart race. At first, Daniel and Mark were thrilled. They offered to trade genuine copies of their best games in exchange for Kevin's. A perfect friendship, also they thought. The slow betrayal. The betrayal didn't come all at once. It trickled in, like a virus. The first game Kevin gave back was corrupted. Floppy disk wouldn't load. The second came with no copy protection, completely unusable. The third, covered in scratches and clearly mistreated. Meanwhile, Kevin kept their pristine games. All of them. And every time they asked if something went wrong, he'd smirk. Shrug it off. Blame the disk drive. Pretend like they were the problem. Daniel and Mark tried to be patient. Maybe he just didn't know better. Maybe he'd fix it. But weeks turned into months. They never received a single working game from Kevin. He, on the other hand, built a collection of theirs, dozens of rare titles. Worse still, Kevin began mocking them publicly. He teased Daniel for being a fan of Queen, especially after the death of Freddie Mercury. "Why do you listen to gay music?" he'd sneer, loud enough for others to hear. Kevin came from a strict, religious household. His parents, particularly his mother, were deeply conservative and painfully judgmental. And that's when an idea began to form. Turning point, the perfect setup. Their school had scheduled a field trip to an AIDS awareness event. It was the 90s. Campaigns were everywhere, flyers, education packets, even free condoms handed out with logos of the foundation sponsoring the event. Daniel and Mark didn't go there expecting an opportunity for revenge. But when Kevin loudly mocked the event and laughed at the gay community again, they realized this wasn't just about games anymore. It was about justice. That night, the two friends sat down in front of Daniel's inkjet printer, one of the few in the neighborhood. They designed a letter. Not just any letter, a believable one. They mimicked the formatting, the tone, the logo of the AIDS Foundation. It read, "Dear Kevin, thank you for your recent letter. We understand it can be difficult to open up about your sexuality, especially as a young man. Please find enclosed several informational flyers on AIDS awareness and support, along with complimentary condoms. We hope this helps as you navigate these challenging questions. Stay safe." Then, they took the real flyers and real condoms they had picked up at the event, and sealed it all into a large envelope. But they didn't address it to Kevin. They addressed it to Mr. Kevin's last name, ensuring it would be opened by his father. The letter arrives. The day the letter was delivered, everything changed. By lunch, Kevin hadn't shown up to class. By the next morning, the rumor mill was on fire. Someone said his mother had been sobbing in the hallway. Someone else said his father was furious, yelling something about perversion and shame loud enough the neighbors could hear. Kevin reappeared at school the following week, but he looked different. Not physically, but psychologically. He was quiet. Bitter. He wouldn't meet anyone's eyes. Daniel and Mark didn't admit to anything, not at first. They played dumb, occasionally asking questions to gauge whether the letter had worked. And it had. Too well. Kevin was grounded for weeks. His computer access revoked. His reputation at home and likely his relationship with his ultra-conservative parents forever shaken. It was the kind of revenge Daniel and Mark hadn't even imagined was possible. But eventually, the truth slipped. Kevin confronted them, cornered them in the hallway. "You sent that letter," he hissed. "Didn't you?" The silence said everything. And so did the trip to the principal's office that followed. Justice delivered. There they were. Two teenagers sitting before the school principal, flanked by Kevin's furious parents. Daniel and Mark explained, calmly, why they did what they did. They laid out every detail: the months of deception, the ruined discs, the public mocking, the theft. The principal listened. So did Kevin's parents. In the end, the boys were punished, but not harshly. A warning. A suspension. A lecture about bullying. But in truth, the room had shifted. Even the principal could see, this wasn't cruelty. This was justice, served cold and brilliantly executed. Kevin never spoke to them again. But the rest of the school? They started treating Daniel and Mark with something new: respect. Moral lesson. Revenge isn't always about getting even. Sometimes, it's about restoring balance. About reminding the world and the villain that actions have consequences. Daniel and Mark didn't ruin Kevin's life. They simply revealed who he really was. And let the fallout speak for itself. 30 years later, it's still the best revenge Daniel ever got. If that revenge gave you chills, drop a comment below. What's the most savage but deserved payback you've ever seen? And hit that subscribe button for more twisted justice stories that prove justice always finds a way.